Hello, this is Christy. Today we will look a little bit at managing layers in Photoshop. When Photoshop introduced layers, they revolutionized photo editing because you could do so much more when you had access to layers, so you could move things on top of each other and still keep them separate, as well as not having to push pixels all the time and losing the stuff that was behind. So in Photoshop, in order to manage layers, you have to either convert your background to a layer or add new layers with different elements, and then you can use the layers panel, which I'm showing on the right here. If you don't see the layers panel, you can go to Window, Layers to turn it on, or you can click or press the F7 key to bring up the layers panel. So in this file that I have here, I just have the background, which is white. I have nothing on it, and let's add something to it. Let's add a bit of text. So I'm going to use the text tool, and I have it, it's kind of like a red color here, horizontal type tool. I'm just going to click inside of my document, and I'll just leave the default text in here and click on the selection tool. So now this is my text here. I can change its color to maybe red, that's fine, and I can Control T to transform it if I want to make it larger. And notice that in the layer panel, the text itself is a layer separate from the background. So that means that if I want to move it around, it's moving around and the background remains unchanged. Now, if I want to make a different color on the background, let me just fill the background with maybe some light red, like this. This is my background, and I'm going to use a brush to paint with white on this, just so you can see the distinction. So I'm creating a bit of a faded kind of shadow, graphic here on the background, right? So now my text, if I click on the layer, I can move my text around. So my text is part of the document, but it's not part of the background. I can take the background if I want to do stuff to it and convert it to a layer by selecting the background layer, right click and say layer from background. Now Photoshop is asking me if I want to give it a name. I'm just going to call it layer 0 and click OK. Now I don't have a background layer. My background has become layer 0, and I can move it like any other layer. And you notice this checkered background here. This means there's no image data, and that portion here would be transparent. If I want to transform this, I can do it now. Control T, and I can transform this layer by itself. To duplicate the layer, you can right click on it and select duplicate layer, and of course Photoshop asks you for a name again, and now you have two layers of the same content. And then you can change, maybe you can invert this one, and it is a different layer, and I can still go to the other layer, move that one around, and my text is also separate. If I want to merge two layers into one, I can select both of them and click, press Control E to merge, or I can use the command merge layers from this menu. Merge layer, and now the bitmap data from these two layers has been grouped together, and not grouped but actually combined and unified, so I cannot separate it anymore. I cannot break this apart, and if I maybe use the selection tool to select the green rectangle and try and move this around, you will see that the missing data from the other channel is gone, because this is now part of the same layer. So I cannot go anymore. I cannot go unless I do undo to move back to two layers like this. Control Z. You can do something else with layers. You can change their opacity. So click on the layer to make it less opaque. So you can click the opacity selection here and slide it down. So now you can see my layer is see-through. And also, if you want to group layers together but not combine them, so you can refer to them, click on them to use the Shift key to select both maybe, and then you can either press Control G or Command G to make them a group, and you see it's become a group, Or you can drag both layers on the bottom here on the panel where you see this folder. So let me show you again. This is a folder. You can actually, of course, or a group. It looks like a folder, but it's called a group. You can actually click on this to put those selected layers inside of it, or drag those layers like I'm showing you now. Again, I'm taking them out, selecting two layers, dragging them on top of this group icon, and they go inside the group. You can rename the group by double clicking on its name, squares. You can open the group like that and see the contents, and every layer, you can see it in there, it has remained individual. If I click on one of the layers in the group, I can still move it individually within that group. But if I click on the group and move things, both layers, or how many layers you have in there, move together. Another thing you can do, and I'm going to show you, if I actually delete this group and take the layers out of it like that and delete the group, it's empty now. If I have my text layer within the two, between the two layers, so you can move layers up and down. In this panel, if you want something to be on top of the other one, you just move it up or down. Whatever is at the top is visible, whatever is at the bottom is below. So if I want to put the pink square in on top of the green one, I can just click on the pink layer, move it up, and now it's on top. If I want to put the text between them, click on the text layer and put it between those two layers. Let me just take the opacity off from this one so that you can see the whole thing. And now look at my text. It is on top of the green layer, but it's underneath the pink one. So it's just moving between them, the two. One thing to remember is, if you are grouping two layers, one from the top and one from the bottom, you notice that my squares have the text between them. And if I group my squares together and I don't group the text, look what happens. Wherever the group is, both layers will be moved. So now my text is no longer between the layers, it is below them. So if I want to put my text above, I either move the group below or move the text above. I cannot keep my text between those two layers when they are in a group and my text is not. So this is one catch thing, because you may have your layers in a certain hierarchy and then you select a few and group them, and then you may have unintended effects. Every layer can be transformed. It's like a different object. So if I click on this pink layer, Control T to apply transformation to it, I can rotate the contents, I can scale it, I can move it around and press enter to apply, change its opacity, and also you can apply different blending styles, blending modes. If you select this layer and then you look at this drop down here, this drop down is the blending mode. By default it is normal, but if you change it to maybe dissolve, or you can change it to maybe darken, you will notice that it has different effects to the layers below it. So overlay is like this, it's like a different thing: soft light, hard light, vivid light, linear light, pin light. So the layers no longer blend normally by complete opaque, but they also apply different blending modes, and you can achieve different effects to it, like difference, exclusion, division, all of that, hue, saturation, luminosity. So when you move it now, this blending mode creates a different type of view than just on top of each other. And also every other layer, even text layers, can be blended in different ways, and you will retain your ability to edit the text. Even you can choose the type tool, click inside and change all your text. Finally, if you want to save your file and you have layers in it and they're not flat, then you need to save it in either Photoshop format or a format that supports layers, depending on how much editing you still want to do later. If you have layers and you want to make changes later, you want to save it as a PSD format, Photoshop document. But if you want to save it as a different format, you need to flatten the file first or export it as something that has alpha, such as PNG. So if you want to make this picture available, let's say for uploading on the web, like a web banner or a web graphic, then you need to save it for the web. So if you want the information that is around your data, like this information here, the background, to be transparent, then you need to export to a format that supports alpha. So for the web, you probably want to export it to PNG, which supports alpha. And then your PNG file will have all of this alpha layer here, so you can see through it while everything else is merged together. But if you want to save it as a flat file, as a JPEG file, then it's not going to retain the layers and it's not going to be see-through. It's not going to have the alpha channel. If you want to make your image flat, you can do it several ways. You can do Control-Shift-E to merge visible layers, but that will keep your alpha channel here, so you can still have your transparency, but everything is grouped to, it's not actually grouped, it's unified together, so there's a single layer here. Or you can flatten your image, and if that is accessible from the layer menu, and choose flatten image. Flatten image will actually transform everything you see into a single background. So if I click flatten image, now everything's been flattened down. I cannot edit anything. I cannot move things unless I convert it to a layer again. I don't have multiple layers, and my layer now is called background. So I have lost everything that was in, between the layers. I've lost the ability to move things around, but my image is now flat, and I can save it as a JPEG or whatever I want to save it as, but I cannot edit anything. So this is like an introduction to layers. I hope this was useful. I know this is a kind of a basic tutorial, and probably you knew all these, but I just thought I would cover it anyway. So I hope you can now use this knowledge to work better with layers, organize the hierarchy and the aspect of your data, and use folders and apply blending modes and so on. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my tutorials and you want to learn more about Photoshop, graphic design, video editing, and so on. Thanks for watching. See you next time.